When my grandfather passed away, he left me a legacy worth $250 million, a thriving company he built from the ground up. I was ready to embrace my inheritance, but my stepfather had other plans. His sudden takeover was shocking, but little did he know that my grandfather's final gift came with lessons and memories that would shape my journey in ways he could never anticipate. My name is Lily, and I recently turned 15 years old. Since then, everything has changed. Let me introduce you to my family. From the outside, our family appeared to be normal. Mom stayed at home, and Dad worked a lot of overtime. My younger sister, Olivia, was 8 years my junior. Dad worked as a manager for a large corporation owned by my mother's grandparents. Grandmother had a lot of ambition. She started with a few laundromats and eventually expanded into cleaning supplies and laundry detergents. She offered Mom the business when she decided to retire, but she declined, so Dad took over. That's when the complicated part started. I recall the day everything came apart. As I was working on my homework in my room, I heard my mother yell at my father downstairs. Frank, you are nothing but a loser. This is my family's home and business. I should be grateful for allowing you to take over. In the weeks that followed, when Mom and Dad finally talked, things got worse. It was always accompanied by an argument. They didn't say much. Olivia was 7 years old when I tried to keep her entertained, but she sensed something was off. Then the day came. That would change everything. Dad stood in the living room, a bag at his feet, when I returned home from school. "Dad," I murmured, my voice wavering, "what's happening?" He approached me and gave me a firm hug. He apologized. "Sweetheart, I need to leave this place. It is detrimental to all. I had difficulty breathing. However, how about Olivia? How about me?" I inquired, tears in his eyes. He withdrew. "I also adore you very much, never forget that. But love isn't sufficient. Sometimes." He kissed my forehead before turning to face Olivia, who was looking at me with bewildered eyes. "Pumpkin, please be good to your big sister." And he was gone in an instant. The door closed behind him, and I felt empty. Mom arrived home about an hour later. When I told her that her father had passed away, she didn't seem surprised. She just nodded, as if she knew what was coming. "Well done," she mumbled. "Mom, I couldn't believe what I was hearing." "You can't really say that." Her icy gaze shifted to face me. "Lily, your father has repeatedly cheated on me." I was at a breaking point. That night, everything changed forever. I could hear my mother talking on the phone in her room as I lay in bed. She seemed happier than she had in months, and she was laughing. I was too exhausted to care. But I'm not sure who she was speaking to. When I thought things couldn't get any more confusing after Dad left, Mom sprung another surprise on us. We were eating breakfast when she announced, "I have some news. One morning, I'm getting married. My cereal recently caused me to choke. How come? Dad has only been gone for 3 months?" "Mom," as if it were no big deal. She waved her hand gently. "Sometimes true love comes as an unexpected surprise. When you are older, you will understand." Paul moved in 2 weeks later. I suppose he was fine. He was tall and attractive, to the point where people would say, "Oh, he appears nice." But I wasn't at ease with him right away for some reason with Olivia. Dad tried to be present by playing games and helping with her homework, but it was as if I did not exist. In the meantime, the company was undergoing changes. Mom took over after Dad left, and she brought Paul with her. They seemed to get along well, as they were constantly discussing business ideas. I try to focus on my own life, friends, school, and all of the typical teenage activities. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing my identity in my own family. When Mom and Paul announced that they were opening a new company branch in a different city, things got worse. Mom announced that we were moving one evening. "This is an excellent opportunity for the company. Paul and I have been talking, and we believe it is best if you stay here." She stated, "I was hearing things I couldn't believe." "Remain here by yourself." Surprised, I inquired. "Mom said you're almost finished with school, and there won't be much space in the new home. Making the transfer right before your exams would be absurd. It was like taking a punch to the gut." "So, where should I live now?" "On the street," attempting not to cry. I asked. Mom reprimanded. Don't be so dramatic, Lily. Your grandmother will host you. She has already provided her consent. I hurried to my room and closed the door. Tears of pain and rage streamed down my cheeks as I lay on my bed. I kept asking myself when I started burdening my own mother so much. The following weeks went by quickly, occupied with moving boxes and saying goodbye, but not with me. Olivia shed tears because she did not want to be apart from her friends. I tried to be happy for Olivia's sake as I helped her pack. She asked, "Will you come visit us?" Laura, with tears welling up in her big brown eyes. I gave her a strong hug. I will, of course, squirt. I'm not very easy to get rid of. Grandma, and I watched the moving van drive away from the porch the day they left. Paul nodded awkwardly, and Mom gave me a brief hug. Following that, they left, dragging Olivia along. Being Grandma's resident was not as bad as I had imagined. In her own right, she was quite cool. She gave me space when I needed it, and she was always willing to listen when I wanted to talk or simply have a cup of tea. Despite the fact that my 20th birthday arrived sooner than expected, it did not feel like home. That morning, I awoke feeling strange. I should have been excited, but instead I felt empty. Mom called. "Of course! Happy birthday, sweetheart!" she exclaimed, sounding overly cheerful. "I'm sorry we can't attend. Work is absolutely crazy right now. We'll celebrate next month when we come. Okay?" I knew we wouldn't. They hadn't made a single visit since moving. "Sure, Mom. That sounds great." Grandma must have understood how I felt because she went all out. She allowed me to invite a few friends over, order my favorite food, and even bake a cake for a few hours. I nearly forgot about everything. The next morning, Grandma summoned me to her office. Her serious expression made my stomach drop. "Sit down, Lily," she said, pointing to the chair across from her desk. "We need to talk." My thoughts raced. Oh no, is she booting me out? Where might I go? Then she smiled. She reached into her desk drawer and took out a small folder. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Open it." I did, and my heart almost stopped when I saw what was inside. "Grandma, is this?" She nodded. Her eyes sparkled. "The company is now yours, Lily. I see potential in you. You have a good head on your shoulders, and I'm confident you'll do the right thing for the company. But Mom and Paul, they're running it right now," I said, still in shock. Grandma's face tightened slightly. "They are running a branch of the main company. The heart of it all. That is yours now." I sat there, stunned, barely 20. The owner of a multi-million-dollar business, it felt like a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. I'm not sure what to say. I finally succeeded. Grandma reached across the desk to squeeze my hand. "You don't need to say anything, just promise to give it your all." I nodded, still shocked. "I promise." She leaned back, satisfied and covered. "I have one more piece of advice for you, and I want you to listen carefully." I leaned in, holding on to every word Grandma said. "Call your dad. There's more to this story than you realize. Talk to him, even if it's only as a consultant. But listen to him." It took me a week to muster the courage to call Dad. We decided to meet in a small cafe downtown. When I saw him, my heart tightened. He appeared older and tired, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. There was an awkward silence at first, but then it all came out. The divorce. Mom remarried. The move and Grandma's present. Dad listened silently. His face conveys a wide range of emotions. After I finished, he took a deep breath. "Lily, there's something you should know about the divorce." He then told me everything. Mom never respected him. He was constantly mocked and referred to as a failure, making him feel unworthy. He described how, after a heated argument, he became inebriated and made the worst decision of his life. "I cheated on her," he admits. His voice was heavy with guilt. "I regretted it immediately. But your mother turned it against me. She threatened to take everything, even you and Olivia. She wanted me to leave, give her all of the property, and pay alimony." I sat there in shock. This did not sound like the mother I thought I knew. "Why didn't you fight it?" I asked. Dad looked at me with both sadness and love in his eyes. "Thanks to you and Olivia. I didn't want you two to go through a messy public divorce. I figured it would be easier as we talked." For the first time in a long time, I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from my chest. Before we left, I felt as if I had reunited with my father. I took a deep breath and asked Dad, How would you feel about assisting me with the company as a consultant? His smile was all the response I needed. The next few months were hectic. I studied for exams, I spent long nights cramming, and before I knew it, I was standing on stage at my high school graduation, holding a diploma. Grandma was in the audience, smiling proudly. Mom and Paul had disappeared, but by then I had learned not to expect much from them. As summer arrived, I focused on college applications, with Grandma's help and Dad's encouragement from afar. When the acceptance letters began to arrive, I had high expectations. I couldn't believe it. The biggest surprise came when I opened the financial aid package for my first choice. Full ride. I looked at the letter in disbelief. Grandma cheered and drew me into a hug. I knew you could handle it, kiddo. All the late nights and competitions paid off. I've decided to major in business management. It seemed like a wise decision, especially now that I had the company to consider. I now had a company to run, but the concept still felt surreal. But I was determined to make grandmother proud. To celebrate my college acceptance, Grandma planned a small party for just the two of us. We received some fancy takeout and a bottle of sparkling cider. Despite the fact that I was an adult, Grandma refused to let me drink champagne. Now? We were about halfway through dinner when the doorbell rang. Grandma frowned, obviously not expecting anyone. "I will get it," I said, setting down my fork. When I opened the door, my stomach dropped. My mother and Paul stood there, both looking annoyed and impatient. Before I could say anything, they had pushed past me into the house. "Mom did not waste time greeting you, Mother. We need to speak about the company. Now." I stood there stunned as Mom went on a rant. She did not even look at me or inquire about my graduation or college. It was as if I wasn't even present. "Why can't we access our main accounts?" she demanded. "And why are you impeding the transfer of funds to our branch?" Grandma's expression hardened. "Because it is no longer your decision, Kelly. Lily currently owns the company. She is in charge of the organization's finances and future plans." The room became silent. I could feel tension in the air. After Grandma's words, I saw a wave of emotions wash over Mom's face, first shock, then anger, and finally something calculating. Suddenly, her entire demeanor changed. "Lily, sweetheart." She spoke, her voice dripping with phony kindness. "I have missed you so much. Why not come live with us?" I blinked. The sudden change caught them off guard. Mom approached, reaching out as if she wanted to touch my arm. I instinctively stepped back. "We've settled in nicely in our new city. We have a lovely home, and there is a room just for you. We could set up a desk and get you a new computer for school and work." "No, Mom," I replied firmly. I quote content here. "I have friends, I go to school, and my grandmother needs me." Mom's smile faltered for a moment, but she soon recovered. "If that's the issue, we can always return here. We could live in our old house as before. Wouldn't it be nice?" I shake my head. "It's not about the house, Mother. It is about everything." I could see the rage rising in her eyes, barely contained. Before she could say anything, I decided to ask the question that had been burning inside of me for months. "Mom, why did you actually divorce Dad?" She froze, taken aback. "Well, your father cheated on me several times. I grew tired of it. He left us for his mother and did not even pay alimony. That is not true," I replied quietly. "Dad told me everything. It only occurred once, and it was because of how you handled him. He did not abandon us. You kicked him out, and he has been making regular alimony payments." Mom's face twisted in anger. "How dare you, ungrateful brat? You have no right to interfere in my private life. Everything here is mine, and I choose who lives where." Grandma had been quietly watching. Finally stepped forward. Her tone was calm yet firm, stronger than I'd ever heard before. Kelly said, "That's enough. You appear to have forgotten a few things. This house is the company. They belong to me, not you. I gave Lily the company because I trust her judgment more than yours. Right now, I believe it is time for you to leave." I watched with mixed emotions as Grandma firmly led Mom and Paul out of the house. The door clicked shut behind them, and I felt a strange combination of sadness and relief. I had lost something today, the last shred of hope I had for my mother. But I also gained something, a clear picture of my future and the security of knowing I wasn't alone. "What happens now?" I asked. My voice was muffled against Grandma's shoulder. She backed away and gave me a small smile. Now we'll get back to celebrating your college acceptance. And tomorrow, we'll start planning for your real future. Not the one your mother attempted to force upon you. The next morning, after my confrontation with Mom and Paul, I awoke to the sound of voices downstairs, curious. I crept down the stairs and looked into the living room. To my surprise, Dad was sitting on the couch, deep in conversation with Grandmother. I sat down next to them, and Grandma explained why she had called Dad over. "I've been thinking of Olivia." She asked, "Your mother?" "Well, I'm not sure she's in the best position to look after her right now. I have suggested that your father seek custody of Olivia. I experienced a surge of hope." "Really, Dad? Are you planning to do it?" He ran his hand through his hair, looking nervous but determined. "Yes, I am. It will not be easy, but Olivia deserves better than what she's receiving now." I couldn't help it. I flung my arms around him. "Thank you, Dad." As we separated, Grandma cleared her throat. "There's more," she explained. "I hired a private investigator to look into your mother and Paul's affairs in the coming weeks." Life settled into an unusual new rhythm. I began my college classes with a newfound determination to succeed. Dad began to come over on a regular basis, and we worked on improving our relationship. It felt great to have him back in my life. Then, about 2 weeks after that conversation, Grandma invited us both over. Her expression was serious as we sat down. She stated that the investigator's report had arrived and was direct, and it's worse than we expected. She laid out the facts, and each one hit me like a punch. Mom had been cheating on Dad for years before the divorce. Her affair with Paul began while she was still married to Dad. There were hotel receipts and records of expensive gifts, all of which provided a clear picture. However, that wasn't the worst part. "Paul is a con man," Grandma said, her voice firm. "He has done this before. He charms wealthy women, persuades them to move their money, and then flees with it." I felt sick. "So when they wanted to transfer the company's funds?" Grandma nodded. "Exactly. He intended to steal it and disappear." We sat in silence, each in our own thoughts. Finally, Grandma said we had to confront Mom with the truth. We scheduled the meeting for the next day. Mom arrived at Grandma's house looking irritated and impatient. Her expression changed when she saw that her father was also present. What followed was one of the most difficult conversations I've ever participated in. Grandma laid out all of the evidence, the affair. Paul's fraud history and plan to steal from the company are revealed with each piece of information. I looked at Mom's face, hoping for some guilt or understanding, but all I saw was denial. "This is ridiculous," Mom said, sounding defensive. "Paul adores me. He'd never do that. You are all just jealous of our happiness." Dad attempted to reason with her. "Kelly, please review the facts. Think of Olivia. Is this the type of man you want around your daughter?" But Mom would not listen. She stood up, her face red with rage. "I do not have to listen to this. Paul is a good man, and I completely trust him. You quote, just trying to ruin my life with that." She stormed out and slammed the door behind her. As we sat there, I realized something. This was not the end. It was just the start of a long, difficult battle. But looking at Dad and Grandma, I knew I wasn't going through it alone. The following months were a blur of legal battles and emotional ups and downs. With Grandma's strong support and legal expertise. Dad filed for custody of Olivia. I tried to concentrate on my studies, but it was difficult not to be distracted by everything around me. I insisted on attending the custody hearing on the day it was scheduled. The whole thing was difficult. Mom's lawyer tried to make Dad appear uninvolved in our lives, but our lawyer was prepared. He showed proof of Dad's regular alimony payments, how he had tried to stay in touch with us, and his current stable life. Then came the big shock. The private investigators' report on Paul's criminal history and their plan to steal from the company. I watched Mom's face as the truth was revealed. She looked shocked, then angry, and finally defeated. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The judge granted Dad full custody of Olivia. I felt a variety of emotions. Olivia's safety was a source of relief, but it also brought sadness that things had come to this. As we left the courthouse, Olivia was in Dad's arms. Mom approached us. "This is not over," she hissed, her eyes filled with rage. Grandma stepped between us. "Yes, Kelly, it is. Go home." Mom's situation deteriorated even further after that. The judge ordered her to pay child support to Olivia's father. It was a huge shock for her because she had always assumed she would be the one receiving assistance, not the one providing it. I threw myself into my studies and learning more about the company, attempting to avoid the family trauma, but I couldn't help but feel a little relieved when I learned that Paul had abandoned Mom, running off with another woman and a large portion of Mom's personal savings. My father called me one evening in autumn. His voice was tense and emotional. "Your mother arrived at my house today," he said. "She wants to make amends. She admitted to making a mistake and wishes for us to reunite as a family." My heart tightened. A small part of me wanted him to say yes. I wanted things to go back to the way they were. But I knew better now. We'd all gone through too much. I told her no. Dad spoke firmly. I informed her that the ship had sunk a long time ago and that I would not put you or Olivia through it again. I let out a breath. I hadn't realized I was holding. "Good," I replied, surprised by how strong my voice sounded. "You deserve better, Father. We all do." There was a pause before Dad spoke again. I could hear him smile. "When did you become so wise, Lily?" I left feeling lighter than I have in a long time. I learned from the experts. After I got off the phone, I looked around my room at Grandma's house. My textbooks were scattered across the desk, next to a stack of company reports and photos of me with my father. And Olivia smiled from the bulletin board. This was not the life I had imagined a year ago. It was not perfect. There was still a lot to learn and many challenges ahead, but it was real. That was mine. I thought about my mother, who was now alone and carrying out all of her schemes and deceptions. I felt some sympathy, but it was mostly overshadowed by a sense of justice. She had to deal with the consequences of her previous decisions. For my part, I had a loving family, a business to run, and a promising future. Though it wasn't the path I had planned as I began my new life, I realized something important. Time moved quickly. I managed a multi-million-dollar firm while also attending college. Before I knew it, I was halfway through my degree and completely immersed in textbooks and financial reports. Weekends were sacred, but weekdays were packed with lectures and late-night study sessions. Every Sunday, I packed my bags and headed home to see my father and Olivia. Olivia would rush to me as soon as I walked in, yelling, "Lily," and hugging me. When she was 12, she had big legs and plenty of energy. Just in time for dinner. Dad would emerge from the kitchen, usually wearing an apron. Just in time for the meal. He grinned. Those weekends became my compass. We'd sit down to supper together, Dad and I talking about the company, and Olivia talking excitedly about her school week. Dad and I used to spend late nights discussing business strategy after Olivia went to bed. We would spend Thursdays at Grandma's house, where she would cook a delicious meal and fill the house with the aroma of apple pie and roast chicken. After lunch, we would sit on the porch and talk about everything and nothing. Grandma would squeeze my hand and say, "I knew you had it in you, Lily." As graduation approached, I had mixed feelings. As promised, Dad was keeping the business running smoothly while preparing me to take over. He said to me one evening, "I'm ready to hand over the reins whenever you are." I gave him a strong hug. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." Even though everything was going wrong in life, there were still decisions to make and a business to run. I knew, however, that my little family of Dad, Olivia, and grandmother could handle anything as a group,